climb something really hard, let's just say like V5, and somebody was like, V0 at my gym. Ugh. Well, it might be a V0 at their gym.
Well, gosh, Josh, if it's actually the same climb and one's rated V0 and one's rated V5, which one is right?
Welcome to the series, 7 Things I Hate About Climbing. These lovely things are bouldering grades. 90% of the reason that I climb some things is to complete one of those boulders and achieve a certain number, because to me, getting a higher V number than you've ever got before feels like a big accomplishment. It's awesome. Maybe I'm a V3 climber, and if I climb a V4, yahoo, it's great. But we're gonna talk about 7 things that I hate about climbing grades, specifically bouldering grades. Bouldering grades can be great. Bouldering grades are awesome. And the gist of this is to not take bouldering grades too seriously. I mean, it's important to be competitive with yourself and even with others. That's healthy competition. It's good, it's good. But there are still some things to keep in mind when you're bouldering and looking at those grades. So that V stands for vermin, because we all know climbers are vermin. Also a nickname for a guy named Sherman. And then there's a little number, and the higher the number, the more difficult it is. The lower the number, the easier it is. That number can be really inconsistent. Inconsistent whether you go to a gym and then you go outside, or whether you go even within a gym, or if you go to a different country or a different state, if you're in the United States. For me, I remember going from one gym in the Midwest, United States, and then climbing some stuff, and then going to New England, and then climbing a bunch of really big numbers. And I thought, that's sweet. Then we went over to the West Coast in San Diego, and then we were falling off really low numbers. The first thing that I hate about bouldering grades is that they are inconsistent. They shouldn't be, or should they? I remember when we went to Japan, we climbed in Tokyo. We climbed at B Pump, and the grades were really freaking hard, but they were super consistent within the gym. If you climbed on something of a certain angle with certain holds, and then you went to a different area of the gym, which this gym was massive, and it had very similar holds, very similar angle, similar movement, it would be the same difficulty. And then the really cool thing is we went to Kyoto, and it was the same thing, super consistent. It was even consistent between Kyoto and Tokyo, which was awesome. What kind of stinks is when you go to a gym and there'll be some certain holds on the wall, and there'll be a certain angle, certain movement. You climb on that, it's like V3, and you go to a similar climb in the gym, similar hold, similar angle, similar movement, and it's like V5, and you're like, you just said this was a V3, what's going on? What gives? The second thing that I hate about bouldering grades is that they can be subjective. And I totally get it. You're like, how are climbs subjective? There's a whole scale system, so shouldn't things fall into that scale? And yeah, in an ideal world, if I climbed a V1 in one place and then I climbed a V1 at a different place, they would be the same. But that's just not the reality of it, because a V1 somewhere might be on a completely different angle set by a completely different setter, and you might be feeling really good one day and not so good the other day. Or they might be completely different holds that you're not familiar with, or maybe some things are super pinchy and your hands aren't even big enough to pinch those things. Or maybe it's a giant dyno and you're just physically not tall enough to do it, but somebody else is. That's just the reality of it. Maybe you're really good at overhang and suck at slab like me. Suck at slab, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Helps out a ton, thanks. It can also be subjective based on who graded it and how that person was feeling, how that setter was feeling that day. Maybe they're feeling like really, really strong, or climbing on something that they're really, really strong at, and they're like, felt like V2. But in reality, compared to everything else that they have set, it's actually like a V6. That can be really frustrating for us climbers when we're climbing on something. When you're outside, it can be subjective based off of a bunch of different reasons. The climate, how hot it is out that day. Because when it's hot, the rock doesn't have very much friction apparently. Speaking of which, the next thing that I hate about bouldering grades is outdoor versus indoor. There is a huge difference. I was climbing a certain grade in gyms, and then I was going outside, and we just climbed a Joshua tree, which I know is notorious for having really tough outdoor boulders. But I was struggling on some V0 slabs out there and some V1s and V2s, and it was really scary because outdoors you gotta top out, and sometimes the top out is more scary than the climb itself. And in many cases, the grades are just a lot harder outside, and indoor grades don't really train you for outdoor in a lot of ways, unless they're being really intentional or the gym is being very intentional. The next thing I hate about bouldering grades, there can be an issue on height and other physical attributes of the climber. Number one, if you climb outdoors, Mother Nature is not very inclusive as far as height goes. There could be a little move that's really scrunchy, and then a huge move right after that that's super reachy for some people, and then like a dyno for some people, but if you're tall, you can just reach it. Indoors, a lot of setters set for the general population of height. And sometimes, if you're short, that can be really difficult for you. Or even if you're super tall, that can be really difficult for you. Or if you're really tall, it might even be easier for you, and that kind of sucks. Because you're climbing on some things and you're able to cheat your way up, and that doesn't teach you anything. It doesn't train you very well. Other things like hand size and wingspan can go into play. Let's say you have huge hands and you're really good at pinches, but maybe you really suck at crimps, or even things like how big the padding of your fingertips is. If you have really big pads and a huge palm, then grabbing those giant slopers is gonna be a breeze for you, but it might be really hard to crimp. The next thing that I hate about bouldering grades is style. You develop a certain style based off of where you climb the most. The setters have their certain style, and you get to climb, and sometimes you get to get strong where your setters are strong, because that's how they like to set. You can also develop a style based off of those attributes that I talked about earlier. If you got big shoulders, boulder shoulders, then you're gonna be able to pull off some really burly moves. But if you're not coordinated, then dynos might be really difficult for you. Or if you are very coordinated and a crimp god, then some of those slab problems might be easy, breezy, beautiful. Also, if you climb something on a bouldering wall, it can be really humbling to try a different angle or a different style. I know for me, I like overhang, and I get a really inflated head when I do overhang, because I'm like, yes, big grade, yes, I'm this number climber. And I put a label to myself and I think, oh, I'm a, I don't know, V5 climber or a V6 climber. And then I go try a different angle, like on vert or slab, and then I fall off like a V1. And I'm like, that didn't feel good. Very humbling, which is really good for you. You should try it out sometime. Or maybe you're a very delicate climber and you think to yourself, I just climbed a V9 on slab. Holy cow, I'm a V9 climber. And then you go to a different angle and you get super humbled on overhang because you're not super big and burly and muscle bro, boulder bro. You're a crimp queen or crimp king. All of that being said, I know some of that seemed kind of negative. I love bouldering. It is what I'm gonna continue to do probably throughout my life, as long as I can do it. And I love all of those things. And one of the most positive things about grades is that it can be, when well done, a really good metric for improvement. And I think that's awesome, but you gotta pay attention to some of those things and don't take grades too seriously. Don't take yourself too seriously either. Anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. Peace.